Hi everyone, I'm Stan Allen. Welcome to Paranormal Yakker. My guest today is Kathleen Marden, an internationally acclaimed pioneer and trailblazer in the world of UFOs, UAPs, ETs, alien abductions, and the fight to get full disclosure from governments on what they really know about alien beings visiting our planet. The first time I met Kathleen was some years ago at a MUFON symposium in Toronto, where she appeared with the late Stanton Friedman. Since then, I've had the privilege of interviewing Kathleen about a number of her books. This includes Captured, the Betty and Barney Hill Experience, Captured, which was about her aunt and uncle's alien abduction, was co-written with Stanton Friedman. The other books I interviewed her about and they're great books, was Extraterrestrial Contact, What to Do When You've Been Abducted, and Forbidden Knowledge, A Personal Journey from Alien Abduction to Spiritual Transformation. And today I'll be talking with Kathleen about her blockbuster book, The Alien Abduction Files, the most startling cases of human alien contact ever reported, co-authored with Denise Stoner, a certified hypnotherapist specializing in regressive hypnosis. Kathleen Marden, welcome to Paranormal Yakker.
Thank you. It's great to be back with you, Stan.
When and how, Kathleen, did you and Denise Stoner connect with each other? And what led to you and her collaborating on the writing of Alien Abduction Files?
Denise Stoner and I had a few email messages when I lived in New Hampshire and she lived in Florida. She was having a little difficulty with a conference that she was attending. I did not know her and I couldn't help to resolve that problem. But then my husband and I moved to Florida in 2009. I wanted to be active in Florida MUFON. I had been in New Hampshire MUFON. Denise was going to hold a meeting. She was holding meetings for the general public and also for experiencers of ET contact. She was Florida MUFON's chief investigator. She was a state section director, in line to become state director. And she was holding these meetings, and I decided that I would attend one. She knew who I was immediately, but she didn't introduce me because she thought that I might want to remain incognito. Eventually, I introduced myself as we went around the room, introducing ourselves. I really enjoyed the meeting. I thought that Denise was very professional. It was done in a very orderly and interesting manner, and everyone was having a good time. Eventually spoke with Denise face to face. She asked me to go to her home for lunch one day. I had no idea that she was an experiencer, but it was at that luncheon that she told me that she and her husband had had a UFO abduction in Colorado. She couldn't remember the date or the year. She couldn't remember much at that time, but there was a significant period of missing time after she and her husband had observed these strange, unconventional lights in the sky at the top of Kenosha Pass, a 10,000-foot pass. They were traveling to Buena Vista. They had a camping trailer there. They would go there every weekend during the summer to meet Denise's mother and a father and a family friend. Her mother would have dinner ready for them because they always arrived at the same time. Denise's husband, Ed, had been in the military, and he was still doing everything military style, keeping track of where he was and what time it was, and using the trip odometer and that sort of thing. But on this particular night, as they were descending from Kenosha Pass onto the valley floor toward the town of Jefferson, they saw these very strange lights in the sky. There were three of them. they were like very bright, intense lighting. And suddenly they had felt the car sort of shift into the air and off toward the side of the road. As an investigator myself, I had to be very skeptical about this without revealing it, of course. I was wondering in my mind, did they simply have an accident? Were they unconscious for a while? She talked about how it had been daylight, only 7 o'clock when this happened, but suddenly they found themselves at the other end of the valley on Trout Creek Pass. It was now dark. It was cold. They had no idea how they arrived there, and their trip odometer indicated that they were missing 40 miles. When they arrived, Denise's parents were extremely worried. They thought that maybe Denise and Ed had had an accident. This was before the days of cell phones. Her parents were considering walking to the ranch house of the owners of the campground, trying to use their phone to call the state patrol. Ed and Denise had driven in and really had no idea what happened. They were pretty freaked out. No explanation for what had occurred. And this reminded me so much of what had happened to my aunt and uncle, driving along, having this close observation of unconventional craft, the missing time, finding themselves in a new location. I asked Denise if I might be able to investigate her case. She told me that she would give me permission to do this. And then I asked if I could hypnotize her. She agreed to this as well. I did hypnosis, many sessions with her in sort of the tradition of Dr. Benjamin Simon, who had hypnotized my aunt and uncle, where the hypnosis was reinstated at the end of each session so that Denise could not remember or share that information. And also, I hypnotized her husband, Ed, to find out what was going on. She thought that Ed must have simply remained in the car if she was taken. Over time, we discovered that Denise was a lifelong experiencer, had many memories of contact, had conscious recall of a few that we investigated. I felt that the case was so compelling that I wanted to write about it. Denise and I collaborated on writing the story. I wanted her own words, her reflection upon what happened, the emotional impact that it had on her, and how she was feeling about it at the time that we wrote the book. That was very important to me, and I think that it contributed a tremendous amount to the book. Denise wanted to remain anonymous. Her family feared ridicule. We had written this book. My publisher said, she's going to have to reveal her identity or we will not publish this book. After much discussion between Denise, her husband, and their family, they decided that they would permit Denise and Ed to reveal their identities, and it became a very popular book. It still is popular. I think when we wrote it, we were a bit ahead of our time, but now people have caught up with us. People are still purchasing this book and enjoy reading it.
In your book, you write of two women separated by thousands of miles who share a common thread involving alien abduction. Both cases are supported by multiple witnesses and have substantial evidence. Can you, Kathleen, tell me the circumstances surrounding the abduction of these women?
The two women were people who had actually grown up in New England. That was something that was interesting to me, that the close proximity of them, that they had had similar experiences, including the fact that they were intergenerational abduction experiencers. We use the word contact today more frequently than abduction, but these two actually were abductees. That was their attitude toward it. They experienced emotional trauma as a result of what occurred. They had memories dating back to early childhood of having been taken. Their parents had been taken as well. And then the two of them eventually ended up in Colorado at the same time. They believe that they saw the same craft at the same time. They believed that they were taken to this very large triangular shape or carpenter square shaped craft. They found themselves on this craft. Denise was on one side, Jenny Henderson was on the other side, but they both had very similar memories of being on that craft. I asked them what they were wearing in separate hypnosis sessions, and one described the other's clothing, described what the other looked like, described the experiences that they had. They described the interior of the craft. Their descriptions matched in detail. They described being taken outside the craft onto what was some kind of a platform, and that there were other people out there. And actually, Denise described people that she recognized from Florida who were on that craft. I may be confusing this because this has happened more than once to Denise, but there were sort of trust tests being conducted by these non-humans to convince the humans that they would not fall from the edge of this craft, that there was some kind of gravitational field holding them to this craft. So even if they fell forward, they would not fall off the edge. Jenny, I believe, was very frightened about this and untrusting, but someone demonstrated for her that this was possible. And so she tried it. It was interesting to me that she and Denise grew up within close proximity of one another and ended up in the same location in another part of the United States.
Both abductees were unwilling participants in ongoing experimental procedures by their abductors. What were those experiments, and were the women ever told the purpose, the reason for those experiments?
Both were taken periodically throughout their lifetime. There were needles inserted into the area of their navels. Denise was a little tiny bead about the size of a poppy seed inserted into her eye. It might have been an implant. Also, Jenny had what was probably an implant inserted through her nasal cavity. We were able to learn in my years of research and investigation in the 3 major studies that I worked on with nearly 5,000 experiencers that these implants can be inserted anywhere. They seem to have the ability to travel to any place in the human body. Denise had the experience where there was a long needle with an implant on it inserted into her foot. It appeared to travel up to maybe a higher position in her body. There was a time when an implant was inserted somewhere in her body, and I was actually able to palpate it. We live close enough together so that I could palpate it. As it moved, she was going to have an X-ray, but before she could go to the hospital and have the X-ray, this little bead-like device disappeared. So it had moved up her arm to another area of her body. There were many samples taken from their bodies, puncture wounds taken. They were interested in doing experiments on the levels of toxicity in the human body. I'm not sure if that's in the book, but I've learned it since that time. They are very concerned about us, yet they use our ova, they use our sperm, they collect it, and they do their own experiments where, according to Jenny and to Denise, these blastula, I would say, were inserted into their prepared uteruses, and that they grew for a short period of time, and then they were taken back and they were removed. And they were told that they were for the grays, the insectoids that Denise saw. Jenny might have seen one insectoid, mantis type. Jenny primarily worked with the grays. Denise worked with both species. And they were grown in gestational tanks. When they were ready to survive outside those tanks, they were raised on the craft. This was to assist these grays, I guess, who were no longer able to reproduce. They had difficulty, and they said that it was for their species and for our own, because they were attempting to upgrade our DNA. They were extraordinarily concerned about human behavior. In fact, experiencers are shown images inside craft over and over again of nuclear holocaust, of people being burned, of faces melting, of just horrible images. Also being shown images of environmental collapse, and educated to go out and try to make a change on Earth to save this planet. They say that our technological development is out of sync with our spiritual growth. When this imbalance, then it could lead to the destruction of life on the planet. They claim that this has happened on other planets. It has once happened on our planet, and they do not want it to happen again. This is the reason that they are here, and they have remained here since we developed the technology to destroy ourselves.
What, Kathleen, is the significance of two people, the women you write about, separated by thousands of miles, having the exact same experiences in their encounters with alien beings? And what does that tell us about the mindset and agenda of our alien visitors?
This occurs all over the world, and it occurs across the population. It doesn't matter if you're the janitor, or if you are a high-ranking government official, or even in the military, a high-ranking official. I've worked with people who are experiencers at all levels of society, all races, all religions, all economic groups. It doesn't matter. They are attempting to raise our vibrational frequency, to move us along on an evolutionary scale, they say, so that we will have the opportunity to survive, to live on this planet, and to have a better life, to have a life that's not filled with wars, a life where we will have more opportunities to medical treatments that we don't have now. And in fact, through the years, I learned that some of these ETs have said that they actually contact scientists through their dreams and implant technology and ideas into these scientists. And then the scientists will invent this technology. Although there are some who do not have the best agenda, who are more exploitative than others, the most, even though they frighten us and we feel exploited, initially at least, until we've undergone the therapy to understand what is occurring, and we have that knowledge, people originally feel ontological shock, they feel exploited, they're confused, they might hate these ETs, they want this experience to end, they do not want to be a part of it. But eventually, we've discovered that as years pass, they make the decision that they want this to occur. In fact, that figure in MUFON's study of 516 experiencers that part of the ERT, I was the director for 10 years. And we did this with 2 PhD psychologists. One was Dr. Don C. Donderi from McGill University. So we made this as scientific as possible. What we discovered was that about 75% want their experiences to continue. And even though initially they felt exploited, they were distressed, they had a high level of anxiety. It's best for people when they can learn to move through this, because when you find these entities in your environment, the immediate reaction is fight or flight. You have that response. It's so startling. If you can move on and you can learn self-hypnosis so that you can say words to yourself and go into a deeply meditative state and project love toward these entities, you'll have a much better experience. As an experiencer advocate, that's something that I've worked on with experiencers through either meetings online or at support groups that I've run at various conferences and workshops, that sort of thing.
Everything we experience in life seems to have a yin and yang element to it. And that is no different with people who are abducted by alien beings. Could you, Kathleen, tell me the vulnerabilities and benefits of living life as an abduction experiencer?
There are certainly many vulnerabilities. Most experiencers want help. They want someone that they can talk to who will help them through the trauma that they're experiencing, who realizes that this is true. They do not want to go public. They don't want their identities known. In fact, most want complete confidentiality. They don't even want their story told elsewhere. They will awaken with the same patterned marks on their bodies across the United States, across other countries. There will be these marks on their bodies. They will wake up feeling completely wiped out. They will have fragmented memories of being taken. Some will have memories of certain colored light coming into their environment, that they will see orbs in these light, and then these orbs pop into or grow into these non-human entities. These people then become paralyzed. There's nothing they can do to prevent this from occurring, and they're just swiftly taken through this light and uncraft. They lose sleep. Some of them are so traumatized that they lose their jobs. It's not a good experience until people can work through this. There is a very high percentage of chronic fatigue and immune dysfunction syndrome among experiencers. At the time of our first study that we wrote about in the alien abduction files, the percentage was less than 1%. Since COVID, it's up to 2 or 3%. It was 34% among the abductees in our first study. In MUFON study, it increased to, I believe it was 44%. Very high rate. The nosebleeds, the headaches. These are not good things that experiencers have to go through. On the upside, of this, experiencers become psychic or intuitive. They become empathic. They become better humans. They have knowledge that other humans don't have. And they don't know where they've gotten this, but eventually they realize that they've learned it from these non-human entities. They're being taught different things. Many have developed heart disease, cancer, this sort of thing, even the chronic fatigue syndrome. When they have requested healing, they have been healed. They are taken to an alien environment and suddenly they are better. That's part of the upside of it. When they can meet other experiencers that they can speak with confidentially and carry on a relationship with, then it becomes a much better experience. There are support groups, online support groups for individuals who have gone through this. And sometimes people can form friendships so that when this happens to them, they can just talk to this other person. That is extraordinarily helpful. Some of them have scientific knowledge and can share this with our scientists.
What advice would you give, Kathleen, to anyone who has been abducted and experimented on by alien beings? How should they handle it? Do they say something to the aliens who abducted them? If so, what? And when they return home, who should they contact and tell about their abduction?
The first thing that I recommend is do not try to fight them off, because I have so many photographs of people who have been injured doing that, and terribly injured, covered with black and blue marks. Apparently the paralysis did not work, or they started out with the fight before the paralysis set in. I highly recommend that you try to overcome that fight or flight situation, and that you can project love toward these entities, and they will project love back toward you, usually. When you are on the craft, you're going to feel in a familiar environment. You're going to be experiencing a much lower level of fear, or perhaps no fear whatsoever. You're going to be with the escort who has been with you throughout your lifetime. You've seen this individual time and time again, and you've formed a bond with this individual. If you want this to stop, project to this individual that you want it to stop, that you're done. This is impacting your life, and it's not a good situation for you. Please, please don't take me again. That has worked for some people, sometimes for a short period of time, sometimes for as long as 5 years. Sometimes it has ended completely. In fact, in my book, Extraterrestrial Contact, What to Do When You've Been Abducted, there are many suggestions that you can follow in an attempt to stop this from occurring. Some people are in contact with negative entities, either they're interdimensionals or negative ETs. These entities are attracted toward humans who have a lot of negativity in their lives. Either they're in pain, they're feeling hatred, they might have been in military combat. They are attracted to this negativity. They feed off this negativity, and it's a terrible situation for them. What they have to do is to take steps to change that. Some are alcoholics, some use opioids, and those lower the vibrational frequency of the human body. This attracts these negative entities. So what you have to do is try to move up out of this cement to become more positive, to maybe undergo psychotherapy for post-traumatic stress disorder, for example, to use other methods to overcome this pain, this depression, this negativity, so that you can move up, you can elevate, and you can experience a different level of joy in your life, positive feelings in your life. And that's extraordinarily important.
Should viewers of Paranormal Yakker want to buy the Alien Abduction Files, the most startling cases of human-alien contact ever reported, or any of the other books you've written or co-authored, how, Kathleen, can they do that?
The easiest way to do it is to go to Amazon or Barnes & Noble, or just do an online search for any of my books. They're available in multiple formats. That's why I say this. You don't have to just buy a paperback. You could get a hardcover. You could get an ebook, an audiobook. Or if you live in the United States, you can go to my website at Kathleen-Marden, MARDEN.com, and go to my bookstore. And all of my books are available in soft cover. I will autograph them, and I will send you a bookmark as well.
That's great. I'm sure a lot of people will take advantage of that. Kathleen Marden, I thank you for being my guest on Paranormal Yakker. As always, it's an absolute pleasure yakking with you.
It was a great pleasure yakking with you too, Stan.
Hi everyone, this is Stan Mallard of Paranormal Yakker. I hope you enjoyed the interview you just watched. So that you don't miss any upcoming shows, be sure to subscribe to my free YouTube channel. To do that, just press the subscribe button on your screen.